The message came on a Tuesday, a series of mathematical sequences, followed by what appeared to be a greeting in over 200 Earth languages. The United Earth Space Command Central Facility buzzed with activity as technicians and officers rushed to verify what everyone already knew. Humanity was no longer alone. Commander Frank Miller stood before the massive display screen, his weathered face illuminated by the dancing patterns of the alien transmission. 30 years in space diplomacy had prepared him for many things, but not this. "Origin point confirmed, sir," said the young communications officer. "The signal is coming from the Epsilon Eridani system." Frank nodded. "And we're certain it's not one of ours." "No human vessel has ever traveled that far, Commander. This is definitely first contact." Within hours, Earth's leadership assembled an emergency council. The decision was unanimous. Humanity would respond. Commander Miller would lead the diplomatic mission aboard Earth's most advanced vessel, the UES Horizon. Dr. Lisa Johnson packed her laboratory equipment with careful precision. As the mission's xenobiologist, she understood the weight of responsibility on her shoulders. Her research on extremophile organisms might prove crucial in understanding the biology of whatever waited for them among the stars. "Excited?" asked Dr. Alan Wright, poking his head into her lab. The linguist carried a stack of data tablets containing every known human language and the most advanced translation algorithms ever developed. Lisa smiled. "Terrified would be more accurate. We're about to meet beings that evolved on a completely different world, with completely different ways of communicating," Alan added. "Yet they managed to send us messages in our own languages. That suggests either extensive observation of Earth or remarkable computational abilities." 2 weeks later, the UES Horizon departed Earth orbit with a crew of 200 specialists. Commander Miller addressed them from the bridge as they prepared for their first faster-than-light jump. "Each of you represents the best humanity has to offer. We don't know what awaits us, but we go as ambassadors of peace, curiosity, and friendship. Our mission is to establish diplomatic relations and, if possible, cultural and scientific exchange. We are making history today." The journey took 3 months. When they arrived at the coordinates provided in the alien transmission, they found something remarkable. An enormous vessel, at least 5 times the size of the Horizon, waiting in the emptiness of space. "Their design philosophy is unusual," remarked Lieutenant Diane Powell, the mission's security chief. "Where human ships favored practical angles and radiation shielding, the alien vessel featured graceful curves and materials that seemed to shift color as they watched." The aliens called themselves the Voraxians. Their holographic avatars appeared humanoid, but with elongated limbs and features that suggested evolution in a lower gravity environment. Their skin shimmered with bioluminescent patterns that changed as they spoke. "We welcome our human friends," their leader said through the translation system. "We have observed your world from afar and believe our species can benefit from mutual cooperation." The initial meetings went better than anyone could have hoped. The Voraxians appeared peaceful and offered to share technology that could help solve Earth's ongoing climate and energy crisis. In return, they requested access to certain rare minerals found on Earth and permission to establish research outposts in the solar system. Commander Miller found the Voraxians surprisingly accommodating to human needs and customs, perhaps too accommodating. "Don't you find it strange?" Lieutenant Powell asked during a private briefing. "They know our languages, our customs, even our biological requirements. Yet they shared almost nothing about their own society." "They're just being good hosts," Frank replied, but a seed of doubt had been planted. Later that night, Dr. Johnson discovered something unusual while analyzing atmospheric samples from the Voraxian ship. The air contained trace amounts of a compound similar to human pheromones, compounds that could potentially influence human emotional responses. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Powell noticed that the Voraxians always diverted conversations when asked about other alien species they might have encountered. "Have you met others like us?" she had asked directly. The Voraxian representative's bioluminescent patterns briefly flashed in an unfamiliar pattern before stabilizing. "You are unique among the stars," it answered. "That is why we chose to make contact." As the human delegation prepared for a formal treaty discussion, none of them realized that humanity's greatest test was about to begin. 6 months passed since first contact with the Voraxians. Earth had changed. Voraxian technology now powered cities across the globe. Their medical advances had cured 3 previously terminal human diseases. Clean energy flowed from fusion reactors built with alien assistance. People celebrated in the streets when the last coal plant shut down. Commander Frank Miller stood at the window of his office at United Earth Space Command headquarters, watching ships come and go from the massive Voraxian trade station now orbiting Earth. Something bothered him about all this progress. It came too easily. "Commander, Captain Martinez is here to see you," his assistant announced. Frank turned to see Captain Edward Martinez enter, carrying a secure data tablet. The intelligence officer looked like he hadn't slept in days. "You said it was urgent," Frank said. Edward closed the door before speaking. "I've been analyzing communication patterns between Voraxian vessels. Their encryption is good, but not perfect." He placed the tablet on Frank's desk and activated it. Images of 17 different alien species appeared, none of them human or Voraxian. "What am I looking at?" Frank asked. "Previous civilizations the Voraxians made contact with," Edward said quietly, "dating back nearly 300 years. Frank stared at the images. "They told us we were the first advanced species they'd encountered." They lied. All these civilizations had treaty agreements with the Voraxians, resource exchanges, technology transfers, exactly like what we're doing. Frank felt a chill. "And where are these civilizations now?" Edward's face darkened. "That's what concerns me. According to the data, all communication with each species ceased within 3 years of first contact. The most recent, the Kilori, went silent just 8 months before the Voraxians contacted us. At the main research facility in Nevada, Dr. Lisa Johnson peered through her microscope at tissue samples taken from a Voraxian medical volunteer. What she saw disturbed her. Tiny machines, too small to see with the naked eye, moved through the cellular structure. "Dr. Wright." She called to her colleague who was studying Voraxian language patterns nearby. "I need your opinion on something." Alan Wright joined her at the microscope. "What am I looking at?" "Nanomechanes. They appear to be part of Voraxian biology, but I've found similar structures in human blood samples after prolonged exposure to Voraxians." Alan frowned. "Could it be contamination?" "No. These are different. The ones in human samples appear designed to collect genetic information and transmit it somewhere." Lisa looked up from her microscope. "They're studying us from the inside out." Meanwhile, Lieutenant Diane Powell led a security team on a tour of the newest Voraxian vessel to arrive in Earth orbit. The Voraxian guide showed them various areas of the massive ship, explaining how their propulsion systems worked. "What's through there?" Diane asked, pointing to a sealed doorway they had passed 3 times. "Storage only," the Voraxian replied, its skin patterns shifting rapidly. Nothing of interest. Later, as the tour ended, Diane managed to slip away from the group. She made her way back to the mysterious door and placed a small device against its surface. The device copied the door's security codes. With a soft hiss, the door opened. Inside, she found rows upon rows of stasis chambers, each large enough to hold a human body. They were empty, but clearly designed for someone. A display panel showed what appeared to be a countdown timer. According to her translation device, it read, "Harvest readiness, 87 days." She took quick images with her hidden camera before slipping back to rejoin her group. The Voraxians never noticed her brief absence. That evening, Frank Miller called an emergency meeting with his most trusted staff members. Lisa, Alan, Diane, and Edward gathered in a secure room swept for surveillance devices. "We need to compare notes," Frank said. "I believe we may have made a terrible mistake in trusting the Voraxians." Each shared their discoveries. The picture that emerged was disturbing. The Varaxians weren't allies. They were predators. The question is, Frank said after everyone had spoken, do we confront them with what we know, or do we continue to play nice while we prepare in secret? If their pattern holds true, Edward said, we have less than 2.5 years before they make their move. Whatever it is. Frank looked at each person in turn. Then we have work to do. From this moment on, we operate on a need-to-know basis. Earth's survival may depend on what we do next. Outside, a Varaxian ship landed at the main spaceport, carrying what they claimed were agricultural experts to help increase Earth's food production. The damaged ship drifted at the edge of the solar system, barely visible against the blackness of space. Earth's patrol vessel approached carefully, scanners working to identify the craft. Definitely not one of ours, said the patrol captain. And not Varaxian design either. Within hours, Commander Frank Miller arrived on the scene with a team including Dr. Lisa Johnson and Dr. Alan Wright. They boarded the mysterious vessel wearing protective suits. The ship's interior was cold and dark. Emergency lighting cast eerie shadows as they moved through curved corridors. The design was unlike anything they had seen before. There was a battle here, Frank said, pointing to scorch marks on the walls. Recent too. They found the survivor in what appeared to be a medical bay. The alien lay on a treatment bed, its blue-tinted skin covered with healing wounds. 4 arms twitched at their approach. It's alive, Lisa said, scanning the being with her medical equipment. But barely. Alan studied the symbols on the walls. These markings share similarities with a language database I found in the Varaxian communications. If I'm right, these beings call themselves the Tellurians. The alien opened 3 large eyes and spoke in a whistling language. Alan worked quickly with his translation device. After several attempts, broken words came through. Warning. Earth. Danger. Harvesters come. Harvesters? Frank asked. Who are the harvesters? The alien's hand reached for Alan's device. With surprising strength, it adjusted settings. The translation became clearer. Those you call Varaxians, known to the galaxy as harvesters. They come. They befriend. They take everything. Back on Earth, Lisa worked day and night analyzing the biological samples from the Tellurian survivor. What she discovered horrified her. The alien's body showed evidence of partial harvesting. Organs removed. Tissue samples extracted. It's like they were taking parts, she told Frank during their secure meeting. Like they were shopping for biological materials. Edward Martinez spread his findings on the table. I've cross-referenced our visitor's information with the data I uncovered. The pattern is identical on all 17 worlds the Varaxians visited. They arrive, share technology, establish bases, and then, between 24 and 36 months after first contact, their true fleet arrives. True fleet? Frank asked. Harvester ships, massive vessels designed to strip planets of resources, including biological resources. Diane Powell displayed images she had secretly taken on Varaxian vessels. These stasis chambers I found. They're designed to preserve living specimens, human specimens. The Varaxians aren't just after our minerals and water. They're after us. Ellen shared his latest translations of the Tellurians' warnings. According to our visitor, the Varaxians consider other species as resources to be harvested. They believe themselves the only true sentient beings in the universe. All others are simply biological material for their use. Why do they wait? Frank asked. If they're so powerful, why not just take what they want immediately? Efficiency, the Tellurian had explained to Alan. They study each species thoroughly, learn weaknesses, collect genetic samples, identify resources. When harvest ships arrive, extraction is quick, complete. Frank stood and paced the room. So the technology they shared with us. Monitoring systems, Lisa finished. Everything they've given us reports data back to them. Every piece of medical equipment collects genetic information. Every power plant maps our resource usage. How much time do we have? Frank asked. Edward checked his data. Based on their previous patterns and the countdown Diane discovered, I estimate their main fleet will arrive in a little over 3 months. 3 months to prepare for an invasion by an enemy who thinks we're still their friends, Frank said. An enemy who has done this at least 17 times before. We should alert world leaders immediately, Diane suggested. Frank shook his head. Not yet. The Varaxians have infiltrated too many of our communication systems. We need to be certain they don't discover that we know their true intentions. So what do we do? Lisa asked. We play their game, Frank said firmly. We continue to act as the grateful, naive humans they believe us to be. But behind the scenes, we prepare. We study everything we've learned about their technology. We find their weaknesses. And when the time comes, we fight back, Diane said. Frank nodded. And we show them why threatening humanity was their biggest mistake. Outside the secure room, a small maintenance drone with Varaxian design elements sat motionless in a ventilation duct. Its recording functions had been active throughout the entire meeting. Frank Miller smiled and shook hands with the Varaxian ambassador. His face showed nothing but friendship and respect. Inside, he counted down the days until the Harvester fleet would arrive. We are pleased to announce the next phase of our technology exchange, the Varaxian said, skin patterns glowing brightly. Our orbital defense platforms will help protect Earth from any outside threats. Earth is grateful for your generosity, Frank replied, knowing full well that these defense platforms would likely be used against humanity when the time came. As soon as the meeting ended, Frank made his way to the underground facility beneath the Rocky Mountains. The old military bunker had been recommissioned in secret, its existence erased from all official records. Here, Project Trojan Horse had taken shape over the past month. Commander on deck, announced Captain Edward Martinez as Frank entered the main control room. Scientists, engineers, and military personnel from 20 different countries worked side by side. They all wore patches showing a wooden horse on their uniforms. Give me our status, Frank said. Dr. Lisa Johnson approached with her tablet. We've identified a weakness in Varaxian communication systems. Their technology uses quantum entanglement for instant messaging across space. We found a way to intercept and decode these signals. And what have we learned? Frank asked. The Harvester fleet is indeed coming. 8 massive ships, each nearly the size of Manhattan. They're currently passing the orbit of Neptune. Alan Reich joined them, excitement evident in his voice. We finally cracked their language completely. Not just the one they use with us, but their true language. The differences are revealing. They refer to us as stock or material in their private communications. What about our countermeasures? Frank asked. Lieutenant Diane Powell led him to a large display showing Earth's orbital space. We've secretly modified the defense platforms the Varaxians helped us build. They believe these platforms are simple defensive weapons under their control. What they don't know is that we've added our own technology to each one. How many platforms are we talking about? Frank asked. 64 in total, positioned around the planet. When activated, they'll target any Varaxian ship in orbit. Frank nodded, pleased with the progress. And our ground defenses. They walked to another section of the facility where engineers worked on what appeared to be modified Varaxian medical equipment. This was the biggest breakthrough, Lisa explained. Remember those nanomachines we found in human blood samples? We've reprogrammed some of them. Instead of collecting information, they now target Varaxian neural pathways. You turned their spy tech into a weapon, Frank said. Exactly. We've distributed the modified nanomachines through the air filtration systems in all Varaxian facilities on Earth. They don't know it yet, but every Varaxian on the planet has been infected. At our signal, the nanomachines will disrupt their nervous systems. Frank's communication device buzzed. He checked it, his expression growing serious. The Varaxians have requested permission to position 3 more of their ships in Earth orbit. They claim it's for a cultural exchange mission. Edward pulled up the sensor readings. Those aren't diplomatic vessels. They're armed warships. So it begins, Frank said. They're moving their pieces into position earlier than we anticipated. Should we deny their request? Diane asked. Frank thought for a moment. No. Approve it. Let them think we're still in the dark. But put all Trojan horse units on standby alert. As they spoke, a Varaxian battlecruiser settled into orbit directly above the North American continent. Commander Miller, a young officer, called out. We're detecting unusual energy readings from the Varaxian embassy in Geneva. They appear to be activating some kind of device we haven't seen before. Frank turned to his team. It looks like they might have discovered our preparations. We may need to move up our timetable. But we're not ready, Lisa protested. The planetary defense grid needs another week of calibration. We might not have a week, Frank replied. Tell all teams to prepare for immediate action. If the Varaxians want to start this dance early, we'll just have to improvise. Outside, citizens around the world watched in awe as more Varaxian ships appeared in the sky, their massive hulls reflecting sunlight as they moved into position around the planet. The attack began at dawn. Varaxian ships launched simultaneous strikes against Earth's major military installations. The moon base, humanity's pride and most advanced outpost, fell within the first hour. Frank Miller watched the live feeds from the command center as cities around the world reported explosions and strange energy weapons firing from orbit. They'd dropped their mask completely, he said, his voice steady despite the chaos. The main screen showed a broadcast from the Varaxian High Commander. Its skin patterns pulsed with colors that Alan Wright identified as their expression of satisfaction. People of Earth, the translation came through. We regret this unfortunate necessity. Your species has shown great promise as a resource, but your recent covert activities have forced us to accelerate our harvest schedule. Please understand this is not personal. It is simply the natural order of the galaxy. Lisa Johnson rushed into the command center, her lab coat stained with what looked like blue fluid. They're deploying ground troops, some kind of bioengineered soldiers. They're heading for our water treatment facilities and power plants. Frank turned to Edward Martinez. Status of our orbital countermeasures. The Varaxians disabled 23 of our modified platforms before we could activate them, Edward replied. The remaining 41 are online and ready. Execute Protocol Prometheus, Frank ordered. Edward entered the command codes. Across the planet, the modified defense platforms suddenly turned against their Varaxian creators. Beams of concentrated energy sliced through smaller alien vessels. The larger ships activated shields, but the unexpected attack caught several of them with their defenses down. 3 Varaxian cruisers disabled, Diane Powell reported from her station. But their flagship is launching fighters. Hundreds of them. Frank opened a secure channel to all Trojan horse facilities worldwide. This is Commander Miller. The Varaxians have shown their true intentions. Implement all countermeasures immediately. This is not a drill. Across Earth, hidden weapons activated. In Varaxian bases and embassies, the modified nanomachines received their signal. Varaxian troops suddenly found their neural systems failing, their movements becoming uncoordinated. But the aliens had prepared for betrayal as well. A signal from their flagship-activated devices, hidden in the technology they had shared with humanity. Power plants exploded. Medical equipment released toxic compounds. Communication networks collapsed. They've hit our backup systems, Edward reported. 80% of our global network is down. The Varaxian High Commander's face appeared on the remaining screens again. Your resistance is unfortunate but expected. Every species fights when the harvest begins. None have succeeded. Frank opened a direct channel to the Varaxian commander. You should have studied our history more carefully. Humans don't just fight. We win. He nodded to Alan Wright, who activated a special program they had secretly embedded in the Varaxian communication systems. Across the alien fleet, confusion spread as contradictory orders appeared to come from their high command. In orbit, Varaxian ships began firing on each other, believing they were targeting human vessels. Their coordination is breaking down, Diane reported with grim satisfaction. But victory was far from certain. The Voraxian flagship launched a devastating attack against the North American continent. The bunker shook as explosions rocked the surface miles above them. Casualty reports coming in from all sectors. A communications officer called out, "Major cities are under direct attack. Civilian deaths in the millions." Frank's face hardened. Until now, they had focused on defensive measures, on survival. But the scale of Voraxian brutality demanded a different response. "Get me a direct line to all remaining human military forces," he ordered, "and prepare our special package for delivery to the Voraxian flagship." "The package isn't fully tested," Lisa warned. "We don't know if it will work as intended." "We're out of options," Frank replied. "The Voraxians want to see what humanity is capable of. It's time to show them." He turned to address the command staff, his voice resolute. "As of this moment, we are no longer fighting to negotiate. We are fighting to win, by any means necessary." Outside, the sky burned with the light of orbital battles as humanity's last-ditch defenses engaged the alien harvesters. For the first time in their long history of conquest, the Voraxians faced a species that refused to be harvested without extracting a terrible price. Frank Miller walked slowly to the global broadcast station in the command center. Every surviving screen on Earth would show his face in the next few minutes. He straightened his uniform, now stained with dust from the bunker's damaged sections. "Are we ready?" he asked. Edward Martinez nodded. "Broadcasting on all frequencies. Even the Voraxians will see this." Frank took a deep breath and looked directly into the camera. His voice was calm and measured, but tinged with cold anger. "People of Earth, this is Commander Frank Miller. For generations, humanity has worked to build a peaceful civilization. We have tried to be better than our violent past. Today, that effort ends." Images appeared on screens across the planet and in orbit. The Voraxian attacks, the destroyed cities, the injured civilians. The aliens who call themselves our friends have shown their true nature. They believe we are nothing but resources to be harvested. They have done this 17 times before to other civilizations. They expected us to be the same. Frank's eyes hardened. They were wrong. In orbit, several seemingly dormant satellites suddenly activated. These weren't Voraxian technology or standard Earth equipment. These were weapons platforms secretly built and launched over the past 2 months, disguised as space debris. For centuries, humanity has restrained its darker impulses in the name of peace. Today, that restraint ends. The secret satellites fired, not conventional weapons, but specialized devices that targeted the Voraxian shields with frequencies discovered by studying their technology. The shields around 3 major Voraxian vessels flickered and failed. Now you will learn why. Throughout our bloody history, humans have feared other humans more than any external threat. In her laboratory, Lisa Johnson activated her completed project. The reprogrammed nanomachines in Voraxian bodies across Earth and in orbit received new instructions. Instead of simply disrupting neural pathways, they began attacking the central nervous system. Voraxian troops collapsed in pain. Their coordinated assault broke down into chaos. "You thought us weak because we welcomed you with open arms. You mistook kindness for weakness." Alan Wright initiated his linguistic attack. Using his complete understanding of Voraxian language patterns, he broadcast false commands to their fleet. Their rigid hierarchy worked against them as confusion spread through their ranks. Our history is not one of peaceful exploration. It is one of survival against all odds, of fighting back when cornered. The Earth forces that had been hiding in the asteroid belt suddenly emerged from concealment. Small, agile fighters attacked the larger Voraxian vessels from behind, while their attention was focused on Earth. "You studied our technology, our biology, our resources, but you failed to study the most important thing about us." The underground facilities around the world launched their secret weapons, not the measured defensive systems the Voraxians expected, but brutal, efficient weapons designed specifically to target their weaknesses. You fail to understand that humans, when threatened, become the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Diane Powell led the counterattack against the Voraxian forces that had captured the moon base. Her small team used modified Voraxian technology against them, turning their own weapons to glass as they tried to fire them. Today, humanity ceases playing nice. The Voraxian flagship, sensing the tide turning, began to retreat from Earth orbit. Frank smiled grimly as he watched it on the monitor. "And where do you think you're going?" he whispered. The special package Lisa had warned about was already aboard the flagship, smuggled in during a diplomatic exchange weeks earlier. It activated now, releasing a virus designed to attack Voraxian biological systems at the genetic level. On screens across Earth, people watched as the mighty Voraxian fleet began to falter. For the first time since the attack began, hope flickered in the hearts of humanity. "We will not be harvested," Frank continued his broadcast. "We will not be conquered. We will not show mercy to those who showed us none." The Voraxian High Commander, its skin now pale and patterns fading, opened a channel to the human command center. This is not possible," it said, its voice translated through the speakers. "No species has ever fought back this effectively." Frank's reply was simple. "We are not like other species. You should have left us alone." 3 days after Frank Miller's broadcast, the battle for Earth continued. The initial human counterattack had been successful, but the Voraxians still had powerful forces in the solar system. Captain Edward Martinez stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, a vessel that had been retrofitted with modified Voraxian technology. Through the view screen, he watched as the asteroid belt came into view. "Perfect hunting ground," he said to his crew. "Just like we planned." The ship moved silently among the floating rocks, its engines dampened to avoid detection. 5 other Earth vessels followed, each carrying specialized weapons. "Enemy fleet detected," the sensor officer reported. 3 harvester ships incoming. They're heading for Earth. Edward nodded. These would be reinforcements for the remaining Voraxian forces around Earth. They had to be stopped. "All ships, move to position," he ordered. "Prepare for Operation Slingshot." Back on Earth, Lisa Johnson worked tirelessly in what remained of her laboratory. The Voraxian counterattack had hit the facility hard, but the underground section survived. "How close are we?" Frank asked, entering the damaged lab. Lisa looked up from her microscope. "The virus is evolving faster than expected. The Voraxians are trying to adapt, but their biological systems are too rigid, too engineered. They don't have our genetic flexibility." "Will it stop them completely?" "Not alone," Lisa admitted, "but it buys us time. Their troops on the ground are operating at maybe 40% capacity now." Frank nodded and turned to Alan Wright, who was monitoring Voraxian communications. "They're panicking," Alan said with grim satisfaction. "I've never seen patterns like this in their language before. The High Command can't understand how we're fighting back so effectively." "They're learning," Frank said. "What's the status of the moon base?" Alan pulled up a video feed. The Earth flag now flew over the lunar facility again. Lieutenant Diane Powell's face appeared on screen, her uniform torn and bloody, but her expression triumphant. "Moon base is secure, Commander," she reported. "We've taken 63 Voraxian prisoners and captured intact data cores from their ships. Any sign of more reinforcements? Long-range sensors show movement beyond Neptune. Could be another wave." Frank turned to the tactical display showing the solar system. Red dots indicated known Voraxian positions. Blue showed Earth forces. The situation was better than 3 days ago, but still dire. "We need to take out their fleet communication hub," Frank said. "Without coordination, their ships are vulnerable." In the asteroid belt, Edward Martinez put Operation Slingshot into action. Earth's ships used gravity anchors, another technology stolen and improved from the Voraxians, to alter the trajectory of selected asteroids. "Targets locked," his weapons officer reported. "Asteroids moving to intercept course." Edward watched as massive rocks accelerated toward the incoming Voraxian vessels. The aliens detected the threat too late. "They're firing on the asteroids," someone reported. Edward smiled. Perfect. As the Voraxians wasted energy destroying some of the larger, more obvious asteroids, smaller ones slipped past their defenses. The impacts weren't enough to destroy the massive ships, but they disrupted shields and disabled weapons. "Now," Edward ordered. The Earth fleet attacked from multiple directions, targeting the damaged sections of the Voraxian ships. One harvester vessel exploded in a brilliant flash. Another lost engine power and began drifting. "The third ship is retreating," the sensor officer called out. Edward opened a channel to Earth Command. "Martins to command. 2 enemy vessels neutralized. 1 retreating. Pursuing." Frank received the news with a nod. "Tell Captain Martinez well done, but not to pursue too far. We need him back for the main battle." A communications officer rushed over. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission. It's from the Tellurian ship we found. There are more of them, a whole fleet, hiding in the Kuiper Belt. They're offering to help." Frank raised an eyebrow. Seems we're not the only ones with a score to settle against the harvesters. For the first time in days, he allowed himself a brief smile. The Voraxians had united their victims against them. Now they would face the consequences. 1 month after the Voraxian attack began, Commander Frank Miller stood in the observation dome of the recaptured Voraxian flagship. Earth hung like a blue jewel in the blackness of space. Some continents showed dark scars from the battles, but the planet had survived. "It's time," Diane Powell said, approaching from behind. Frank nodded and turned away from the view. The command center of the massive ship bustled with activity. Human operators worked alongside Tellurian allies at stations designed for Voraxian use. "Is our guest ready?" Frank asked. "As ready as he'll ever be," Diane replied. They walked together to what had once been the High Commander's private chamber. The Voraxian leader sat there, its skin patterns dim and sluggish. Lisa Johnson's virus had weakened it, but they had developed a temporary antidote to keep it alive for this moment. "The surrender document is prepared," Alan Wright said, holding up a tablet with text in both human and Voraxian language. The High Commander looked up at Frank. Never before has a harvest failed, it said, its voice translated through speakers. "In 10,000 years, no species has done what yours has." "You should have studied us better," Frank replied. "Humans don't take kindly to being treated as livestock." The Voraxian skin flickered in what Alan had learned was their equivalent of bitter amusement. "What will you do with us now?" "Extinction. That would be most efficient." Frank shook his head. "That would make us like you." "No, you will return to your home system, confined there under watch of the new Alliance." "Alliance." The doors opened and representatives of the Tellurians entered, along with others from 3 species that had been hiding from the Voraxians for generations. "Every species you tried to harvest," Frank explained. "Those who survived have united. Your reign as galactic predators is over." The High Commander pressed its limb to the tablet, officially surrendering all Voraxian forces in the system. Later, in the main conference room of the flagship, now renamed UES Deterrent, Frank addressed the gathered representatives of Earth and their new alien allies. "Today marks the beginning of a new chapter for humanity, and for all sentient species who have suffered under Voraxian predation," he said. "We have proven that together, we can defeat even the most powerful threat." Edward Martinez displayed a galactic map showing known Voraxian territory and the worlds they had harvested. "Our next mission is clear," Frank continued. "We will find any surviving victims of Voraxian harvesting and offer aid. We will ensure the Voraxians never leave their home system again, and we will establish a new order in this part of the galaxy, one based on mutual respect and cooperation." Lisa Johnson stood next to the Tellurian scientific leader, comparing notes on biology and medicine. "The knowledge we've gained by studying Voraxian technology will help us heal worlds they damage," she said, "including our own." Alan Wright had been learning the languages of their new allies. With shared knowledge comes shared understanding, he told the gathering. We must ensure that the mistakes of the past are not repeated. As the meeting concluded, the Tellurian leader approached Frank privately. There is something I do not understand, the alien said through its translator. Your species had the power to destroy the Varaxians completely. Our data shows many of your historical conflicts ended in the enemy's total defeat. Why show mercy now? Frank looked thoughtfully at the stars visible through the viewport. Because the true test of a species isn't how fiercely it can fight when threatened, but what it does after victory. The day humanity ceased playing nice, we proved we could be as ruthless as necessary to survive. But today, we prove we can be something the Varaxians never were, compassionate in strength. The Tellurian made a gesture of respect. Perhaps this is why the Varaxians feared your kind most of all. Not just your ability to fight, but your ability to change. As the UES deterrent prepared for its mission to liberate other worlds, Earth began rebuilding. The scars would remain for generations, but something new had been born in the fire of invasion. A united humanity, ready to take its place among the stars not as conquerors or victims, but as protectors. Frank Miller looked once more at Earth before the ship jumped to faster-than-light speed. We're coming back, he promised softly. But first, we have work to do.